I am an old woman now. My hair is white, my hands are slow, my heart still a little broken. You wouldn't think so if you saw me. I live in a small cottage with a lovely garden full of daisies and roses. I paint. I volunteer at the church. I bake the best lemon cake in town. At least that's what people say. And my husband Tom, he's a kind man. We've had a good life together. But even good lives can have deep sadness. There's something I've never told anyone. Not my husband, not my friends, not even Mary, my best friend since I was a girl. She probably suspects it, but I've never said the words. Every day I carry this secret like a stone in my chest. Some days it's heavy, some days I almost forget it's there. But it never really goes away. You see, when I was 17, I made a mistake, a big one that changed everything. And now, after all these years, I think it's time to tell the truth. Because yesterday, something happened. Something I never thought would happen, not after all this time. A message popped up on my computer. Just one line, just one question. Are you my mother? My hand was shaking as I moved the mouse. I stared at the message for a long time. I read the subject line over and over again. Are you my mother? At first I thought it must be a mistake, a scam maybe. You hear about those online, people pretending to be someone they're not. But something in my heart, something deep inside me said no. This wasn't fake, this was real. I clicked the message. Hello, I hope this is the right person. My name is Emily. I was adopted when I was a baby. I never knew my birth mother. But recently, I took a DNA test. It matched me to a cousin, and that helped me find you. I'm not angry. I just want to know more. I think you might be my mother. If you're not, I'm sorry for the message. But if you are, I would love to talk. Emily. I covered my mouth with my hand. My eyes filled with tears. Emily. So that was her name. I had dreamed of her so many times. I had written letters to her. On her first birthday, her 5th, her 10th. Letters I never sent. I didn't even know where to send them. But now here she was, sending one to me. Tom walked into the room just then. Everything okay? He asked, holding a cup of tea. I wiped my face quickly and nodded. Yes, just reading something. He looked at me for a second like he knew there was more. But Tom never pushes. That's one of the reasons I love him. He sets the tea down next to me and kisses the top of my head. Don't stay up too late, he said gently, then left the room. The tears started again as soon as he was gone. Quiet tears, the kind that come when your heart is full and breaking at the same time. I looked at the screen again, at her name, Emily. After 47 years, she had found me, and now I had to decide, would I answer her? Would I finally speak the truth I had buried for so long? I didn't sleep much that night. I lay in bed listening to the wind, watching the shadows dance on the ceiling. Tom slept beside me, peaceful and quiet. I didn't want to wake him. My mind kept going back, not just to the message, but to the very beginning, to where it all started. Back to the summer I was 17. It was 1978. I worked at the little cafe on Main Street. Maybe you know the one. It's closed now. Just an old building with broken windows and faded signs. But back then, it was always full of people. The smell of coffee and fresh bread. The sound of spoons on plates. Laughter, music playing low from the radio. I wore my hair in a ponytail, and my uniform was always a little too big. I worked hard. My mother said I had to. She said I needed to become a proper woman, whatever that meant. Then one day, he walked in. Peter. He looked different from the other men. Older, maybe in his early 30s, clean shirt, leather briefcase, a calm way of moving, like he was never in a hurry. He sat at the same table every day at lunchtime, always near the window. He ordered coffee and a tuna sandwich, and he always said, "Thank you, Julia." I remember the first time he said my name. I stopped for a second. I hadn't told him, but he had read it off my name tag. Still, it felt nice, like he saw me. Not just the waitress, not just the girl behind the counter, but me. We started to talk. Little things at first. "Hot today, isn't it? Do you like working here? Do you paint? Your hands look like an artist's?" I would laugh. I wasn't used to someone asking about me. Peter wasn't loud or charming in the way boys tried to be back then. He was quiet, kind, careful. He listened, and slowly I began to wait for him. I would tie my ponytail just a little neater when I knew he was coming. I would blush when he smiled at me. It wasn't long before we started meeting outside the cafe. Just walks at first, talking about books and music. I told him I liked to paint. He told me he traveled for work. Sales, he said. "Not very exciting," he smiled, "but it pays the bills." We sat under trees in the park and shared lemonade. We talked about dreams. I told him I wanted to leave town one day, maybe go to art school. He told me he wanted to stop running from place to place. "Maybe find a place to stay," he said softly. Looking back now, I can see how complicated it all was. How wrong, even. He was too old. I was too young. But at the time, it felt like the only bright thing in my life. My mother didn't know. She must never know. I didn't even tell Mary. It was my secret. My first real secret. And then, one night, everything changed. I missed my period. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I bought a test at the pharmacy in the next town over, where no one knew me. It was positive. I was pregnant. I didn't tell anyone for 2 weeks. Not Peter, not my friends, not even myself, really. I just walked around like a ghost, trying to pretend everything was normal. But nothing felt normal. My clothes started to feel tighter. My body was changing. My heart wouldn't stop racing. Finally, one afternoon after my shift, I waited by the cafe window for Peter to come. He didn't show up. I came back the next day, and the next, but his table stayed empty. No note, no goodbye, just gone. At first, I told myself he was busy, maybe a work trip, maybe something happened. But deep down, I knew he wasn't coming back. When I finally told my mother, it was already too late to hide. She stood in the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. I could smell onions frying. She was making stew. I was shaking so badly I thought I might fall over. "I'm pregnant," I said. She didn't look at me right away. She just stared at the stove. I saw her jaw tighten. "Whose is it?" she asked coldly. "His name was Peter. He came to the cafe, but he's gone. I don't know where he is." That's when she turned. Her eyes were hard, not sad, not scared, just cold. "You've ruined everything." Her words hit like ice water. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. "I worked my fingers to the bone to give you a life better than mine, and now this?" She stepped closer. "You will not bring shame to this family." "Mama, please," I whispered. "I want to keep the baby. I'll work. No." Her voice was sharp. "You'll do as I say. I will fix this. You will go away. No one will know." And that was that. A few days later, she packed a small bag for me, 1 suitcase, 1 train ticket. She told the neighbors I was sick and needed to stay with a cousin. There was no cousin, just a cold, plain room in a stranger's house in another town. and a doctor I'd never met. I gave birth in a quiet hospital, far from home. The nurses were kind, but they didn't talk much. I asked if I could hold her, just once. One of them looked at the papers and said gently, "It says here the adoption is final." "I just want to see her face," I said. The nurse paused, then nodded. She placed the tiny baby in my arms. She was wrapped in a yellow blanket. Her eyes were closed. Her cheeks were round and pink. She made a soft sound, like a sigh. I counted her fingers. 10. I whispered, "I'm so sorry." Then they took her away. When I came back home, nothing was ever said again, not one word. My mother acted like it never happened, like that part of me didn't exist. I did what she said. I moved on. I smiled when people asked if I'd been sick. I went back to work. I finished school. I married Tom eventually, but something inside me had changed forever. And now, decades later, I sat in my warm little house with a cup of tea growing cold beside me, staring at a name on my screen. Emily, the baby I wasn't allowed to love. Was I brave enough now? Could I finally speak the truth? I thought for a while that time would heal me. It's a silly thing, isn't it? To think that time can fix a heart. But that's what they always tell you, don't they? Give it time. Things will get better. But time doesn't always fix things. Sometimes it just helps you forget how bad things were, for a while. After I gave up my baby, life moved on. It had to. I couldn't stay in that small room in that strange town forever. My mother wouldn't let me. I didn't even have the strength to fight back. She told me every day how much I had to do to make up for my mistake. "You need to focus on your future now," she would say, as if I could just erase the past like a bad dream. And so I did. I focused on everything but what was real. I finished school. I found a job at the local library, and then eventually I met Tom. He was kind, patient, and steady. Everything I thought I needed. We married when I was 23. He never pushed me to talk about my past. He didn't even ask. He knew I'd had a tough time, but he never knew how tough. I loved him in the only way I knew how. The way you love someone who is good for you, but not the one you dreamed about when you were young. Tom and I had a life. We bought a little house on the edge of town. We planted a garden. We had a dog. A few years later, we had a son. His name was Luke. He was everything I had ever wanted. A fresh start. But no matter how much I loved him, no matter how much I smiled when I looked at his face, there was always something missing. Sometimes when I'd be holding Luke or watching him play with his toys in the living room, I'd feel that ache. It wasn't something I could explain. It was like a wound no one could see, but it was always there. A part of me, always empty, always wondering about the girl I had given up. I never told Tom. I couldn't. I couldn't tell him that sometimes I'd look at Luke and wonder, what if this was her? What if she had been here instead of me holding my son? I couldn't tell him that I'd often wake up in the middle of the night with a cold sweat on my face, crying for someone I didn't even know. And so I painted. Painting was the only time I could escape from my thoughts. I would lose myself in the brush strokes. I painted pictures of mothers and children, soft, beautiful images of love that I couldn't have. But they weren't real. Just dreams. I thought maybe if I could paint enough of them, I could fill the hole in my heart. It didn't work. And then there was the day I found out about the adoption agency. I had to know. I had to try. So I went to their office and I asked. I begged. I wanted to know if there was any way I could find her. But they couldn't help me. They wouldn't help me. You signed the papers, they said. You agreed. The adoption is closed. That's when I gave up looking. I had no choice, no money, no way to find her. I carried on, smiling through the pain. I played the role of a good wife, a good mother, and a good friend. I was happy enough, but I wasn't whole. Every year, on her birthday, I would light a candle at the church. I would whisper to the sky, I hope you're happy. I hope you know that I loved you. And every year I cried a little more. It was all I could do. Then, yesterday, I got that message. Are you my mother? I don't know what to do now. I haven't told Tom yet. I don't know if I can. What if Emily is angry? What if she hates me for what I did? What if she never wants to talk to me again? The night was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that makes everything louder. The ticking of the clock, the soft rustle of the leaves outside, the sound of my own breathing. And in the silence, the weight of the decision I had to make pressed down on me, heavier than anything I had ever carried. I had spent hours staring at that message, rereading Emily's words over and over again. Are you my mother? It was so simple, yet it carried the weight of a lifetime I had buried deep inside me, a lifetime of regret, a lifetime of silence. I hadn't answered her yet. I didn't even know where to start. The words were there in my mind, but they felt too big, too painful to put into a message. What could I possibly say? I'm sorry I couldn't keep you. I'm sorry I let my mother control me. I didn't even know if I was ready for whatever came next. Would she want to meet me? What if she was angry? What if she was just like my mother, cold, distant, and unwilling to understand? What if I had ruined everything already just by agreeing to give her up all those years ago? My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling. I glanced at Tom, who was asleep beside me, breathing softly. He had no idea what I was going through, what had happened so long ago. I had kept it all from him. He had always known something was missing, but I had never been able to share the truth with him. But now, that truth was right in front of me. Emily, my daughter. The baby I never got to hold. The baby who had grown into a woman who was out there somewhere, wondering about me. And maybe, just maybe, she wanted to know me. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes for a moment, and then, with a steady hand, I typed. Subject: Yes, I am your mother. Emily, I don't know how to begin this message. For so many years, I have carried you with me in my heart, but never in my life. I have thought about you every day, more than you can imagine. I was so young, I was scared, and I was alone. When I found out I was pregnant with you, I didn't know what to do. I thought I had no choice. My mother, she didn't give me a choice. She made me believe I couldn't keep you. She made me believe that the best thing for you was for you to be adopted. I've regretted that decision every single day of my life. But I've never forgotten you. I've never stopped loving you. I understand if you're angry with me. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I want you to know that I have always, always loved you. If you want to talk, if you want to know more, I am here. I will answer any questions you have, and I will wait. With all my love, Julia, I read it over once, twice, and then, before I could think too much about it, I hit send. The moment I clicked the button, I felt a knot in my stomach loosen, but another one tightened. I had just opened the door to something I couldn't close again. I didn't expect an answer immediately. In fact, I thought I would spend the next few days checking my email obsessively, but it wasn't until the next evening that I saw it. A new message. from Emily. My heart skipped a beat. I opened it, and it was simple, short, but the words felt like a weight lifting off my chest. Subject, Re. Yes, I am your mother. Dear Julia, I don't hate you. I don't think I could. I've wondered about you my whole life. I've always wondered who you were, what you were like, why you gave me up. I don't have all the answers yet, but I think I'd like to know more. Could we meet? I sat back, my hands shaking, the weight of her words settling on me. She didn't hate me. She wanted to meet me. It was a start. It was a beginning. A beginning I had never imagined would come. A beginning I wasn't sure I was ready for, but a beginning nonetheless. I didn't know where it would go from here. What Emily would think of me once we met. What kind of relationship we could even have after so many years apart. But I had taken the first step. I had spoken the truth. For the first time in a long time, I felt a little bit of hope. The day I was supposed to meet Emily, I felt like I was floating, like my feet didn't really touch the ground, and I couldn't tell whether I was stepping forward or just hovering in place. The air felt thick with everything unsaid, all the years that had passed between us. There were 100 things I wanted to say, but nothing felt like the right thing. Tom had gone to work that morning, and Luke had left for school. For the first time in ages, the house was quiet, and the silence weighed on me. I didn't feel ready. I wasn't sure I ever would, but I knew I couldn't turn back now. The cafe where we had agreed to meet was small and cozy. It sat on the corner of Main Street, next to a little bookstore. The kind of place you'd find in a movie, a little time capsule. I had chosen it because it was where I worked all those years ago, before everything changed, before my whole life took a different path. I stood outside, staring at the door. My hands were shaking. I could barely hold on to my purse, and the cold air didn't help. What if she hates me? That was the thought that kept running through my mind. What if she looks at me and sees nothing but the woman who abandoned her? I took a deep breath and walked in. The bell above the door jingled as I entered. It was quieter than I remembered, but still smelled the same, like fresh coffee and the faint hint of cinnamon. I glanced around, my heart racing. Then I saw her. Emily was sitting by the window, a mug in front of her, her back to me. She looked so different, yet so familiar. The same dark hair, though longer now. The same way she held herself, quiet but strong. But there was something else, too. She wasn't just my daughter anymore. She was a woman, a stranger. For a moment I couldn't move. I wanted to turn and run, but my feet were rooted to the floor. Emily? My voice cracked when I said her name, and she turned to look at me. Her eyes, those eyes, I could see them clearly now, like they were right in front of me, like nothing had ever changed. She stood up slowly, her gaze soft but cautious, as if unsure whether she should be relieved or angry. Julia? Her voice was hesitant, but kind. She looked at me like she was waiting for something. An explanation, maybe. A reason. I nodded, my throat too tight to say anything else. She took a step forward, and I did the same. There we were, facing each other after all these years. The space between us was full of everything we had missed. The years, the silence, the pain. Can I started, but the words stuck in my throat. I wasn't sure what I wanted to say. I wasn't even sure I deserved to say anything. She smiled, a small but warm gesture. It's okay. I'm not here to make you feel bad. She glanced down at her hands, fiddling with the edge of her sleeve. I've wanted to meet you for so long. And there it was, the thing I had feared the most, and the thing I had wanted the most: forgiveness. The unspoken truth between us. She wasn't angry. She wasn't bitter. She was just curious. She wanted to know me. I reached out then, my hand shaking, and she took it. It felt so simple, yet it carried all the weight of the years that had passed. "You were so young," I whispered, my voice breaking. I'm sorry I couldn't keep you." "I know," Emily said softly. "I know you were just trying to do what was best for me, and I can't be angry with you for that. I just—" She paused, looking at me as if trying to understand me as much as I was trying to understand her. "I just wanted to know who you were. I wanted to know what happened. I wanted to keep you so badly," I said, my voice shaking. "I wanted to keep you more than anything, but I didn't have the strength. I thought I was making the right choice, but I've regretted it every single day." She didn't say anything for a moment. She just looked at me, her face softening. Then, with a small sigh, she sat back down at the table, motioning for me to join her. I did, feeling my legs still unsteady, but for the first time in so many years, I felt like I was finally breathing again. "I guess we have a lot to talk about," she said, her voice a little lighter now. "And a lot to catch up on." I nodded. "I don't know where to start." "How about the beginning?" she asked. "The real beginning." I smiled, a bit watery but genuine. "The beginning." I hesitated, then took a deep breath. "The beginning was when I was 17. I worked at a cafe, and there was a man. And for the first time in years, I began to tell her the story, the truth, everything I had hidden for so long. The man who had been my first love, the fear, the pain, and the decision that had changed everything." As I spoke, Emily listened quietly, her eyes soft, her face full of understanding. I could tell she wasn't just listening to my words. She was trying to understand the woman I was, the woman who had been forced to make an impossible choice. The more I told her, the more the weight on my chest began to lift. We were connecting in our own way. Slowly, piece by piece, we were building something new. It wasn't going to be easy. It would never be easy. But for the first time, I felt like I had a chance to make things right. It's funny, isn't it? How life never really goes the way you expect it. You think you're living one story, and then suddenly, everything changes. I had spent years hiding from my past, pretending I was fine, convincing myself that I didn't need to confront the things I'd buried deep inside me. But meeting Emily that day had forced me to face it all. And for the first time in my life, I realized that maybe I didn't need to be afraid of my past anymore. Maybe it was time to let go. The cafe was quiet when we left. It was late afternoon, and the sun was beginning to dip low in the sky. Emily and I walked outside together, the silence between us not uncomfortable, but soft, like two people who had just found each other after a long, long time. "You know," Emily said, glancing over at me, "I always wondered if you were out there somewhere. If you were alive, I mean. I spent so many years feeling like I was a piece of a puzzle, just waiting to find the rest of the picture." I nodded, my heart aching at the truth in her words. I had spent so many years feeling like I was only half of a person. I had tried to fill that empty space with anything I could, painting, work, being a mother to Luke, but none of it had worked. The hole in my heart was still there, still deep, still aching. And now it was Emily standing beside me, the other half of that lost picture. "I didn't know what to say to you when you first messaged me," I said, my voice soft, unsure. "I didn't know if you'd hate me." I didn't know if you'd want anything to do with me. I don't hate you, Julia." Her voice was gentle but firm. "I understand now why you did what you did. I don't know what it felt like for you, but I can't imagine it was easy." We stopped walking and she turned to face me. "I think, for me, I just needed to know that you weren't out there somewhere wondering about me too." "I was," I whispered. "Every day. I thought about you every single day, but I never thought I'd get the chance to tell you." She smiled, and the smile was real, warm, like she was letting go of something too, something that had weighed on her for so long. "I'm glad we're here," she said simply. "I'm glad we're finally talking." And in that moment, standing there on the sidewalk, I felt something shift inside of me. Maybe it wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. Over the next few weeks, Emily and I kept in touch. We talked about everything and nothing. We laughed about silly things, and we shared the harder truths about our childhoods, about the pain we had both carried for so long. It was slow, and there were moments when I felt like I couldn't breathe, but then she would say something or look at me in that way that made everything feel right again. And I realized that the small moments, those little conversations and shared smiles, were the ones that mattered the most. Tom noticed the change in me. I could see it in his eyes, the way he looked at me when I came home from seeing Emily. How he didn't ask too many questions, but just held me a little longer at night, like he knew I was still figuring things out. One evening, after dinner, he sat me down. "I'm glad you're talking to her," he said quietly. "But I want you to know, you don't have to go through this alone." "I know," I said, feeling the warmth in my chest. "I don't think I could go through this without you." And for the first time in years, I really believed it. I had Tom, I had Luke, and now I had Emily. It wasn't easy. There were still days when I woke up and felt like I didn't know where I belonged. Some nights, when the world was too quiet, I still felt the emptiness from those lost years. But the difference now was that I didn't have to face it alone. Emily and I planned to meet again. It wasn't some grand event, just another step forward, one conversation at a time. But there was a shift between us, a quiet understanding that we were both here now. We were both alive, and that was enough. I still had a lot of things to work through. The regret, the guilt, the things I had lost and never gotten back. But I also had hope in a way I never had before. I had a future that didn't feel like it was written in stone. It was still being written, and maybe, just maybe, I could finally forgive myself. I could finally let go. It's strange how time works. The years stretch out in front of you like an endless horizon, but the closer you get to the end, the more you realize how quickly they've passed. It's been a year since I met Emily, a year since the moment I feared would break me turned out to be the one that saved me. And now, standing at the window of my small cottage, watching the same daisy garden I've tended for decades, I feel at peace. I used to think peace was something unreachable, a distant dream that belonged to other people, not to someone like me. But it's not. It's right here. It's been here all along. Emily and I meet once a week now. We laugh over lunch, talk about everything and nothing, and share things we never thought we would. She tells me about her work with children, and I tell her about the paintings I've been working on, pieces that now seem brighter, more full of life than they ever were before. I still have regrets. Of course I do, but they don't rule me anymore. Instead of thinking about what I lost, I think about what I've gained. Emily has become more than just my daughter. She's become a friend, a confidant, and I'm learning to love her in a way I never thought I could, not with the weight of guilt, but with the openness and vulnerability that real love requires. One afternoon, after a lunch we shared at the same cafe where we first met, Emily and I walked along the riverbank, the water shimmering in the late afternoon sun. "You know," she said, her voice thoughtful, "I used to think about the life I could have had. What would have happened if you hadn't given me up?" I nodded, feeling a familiar pang in my chest. I used to think about that too, every day. She looked at me then, her expression soft but strong. "But I'm glad we didn't meet earlier. I think if we had, I wouldn't have understood who you were, what you had gone through. Maybe I wouldn't have been able to see you as the person you are now. The one who found me again?" "You're right," I said, a smile tugging at my lips. "Maybe we needed the years to pass. Maybe we needed the distance to grow." "We'll never get those years back," she said, a touch of sadness in her voice. "But we have now, and now is what matters." Her words were simple, but they struck me deeply. She was right. Now is what mattered. The rest of it was just history. The pain, the regret, the time lost. It no longer had to define us. I could see the future now, and it wasn't as bleak as I once imagined. "I'm proud of you," I said, the words coming easily now, without hesitation. "I'm proud of the woman you've become." Her eyes brightened. "And I'm proud of you, Julia. You've done the hardest thing of all. You've learned to forgive yourself." I stopped walking and turned to face her. "I couldn't have done it without you." Emily smiled, her hand slipping into mine. "We're doing it together now, and that's all that matters." And as we stood there, watching the river flow past, I realized something that had eluded me for so long. Family isn't just about blood. It's about love. It's about finding your way back to each other when everything seems lost. It's about the small moments that, when pieced together, make up a whole life. And our life, Emily's and mine, was still being written.